All right, welcome back. Another episode of the AI Operator podcast. We are sitting down with Adam, CEO of Anago Cleaning Systems, to explore how a once family-run cleaning franchise ultimately became an AI-enabled high-growth enterprise. So Adam's going to share a little bit about the evolution of Anago's tech strategy and leadership and franchise alignment across different tiers, and ultimately how systems like CleanCom are reshaping client acquisition and retention. We'll be able to talk about some of my favorite things from sales to AI to operations. Adam, welcome to the show.
Jordan, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. We were just chatting about, and you guys can probably see it in the video. I'm cooking. I'm in Germany. It's humid. It's hot. They don't have air conditioning here. Adam is in Florida. He's got the AC cranking. So I'm hoping he can send me some of that. But Adam, how long have you been in Florida for?
So, in Florida, I mean, I'm since I was a kid. I'm originally from Michigan, but I consider myself like Floridian by tenure at this point.
Okay.
So, used to the sweltering jungle that the month of August can become in South Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Michigan, I have a lot of friends that move from Michigan to Arizona. I feel like a lot of people leave that to go to a warmer place. Michigan is not the most warm, from my understanding.
Yeah. I have an aunt and uncle that did that exact path, and then they call them halfbacks, where you move from Michigan to Florida, but then you go half back to one of the Carolinas.
Gotcha. That's funny. That makes a lot of sense, though, because it is like the two extremes. Like I was super excited to get to Arizona when I did, and then it was the summers just got worse and worse. Like almost every year, I just got kind of more tired of it. So if you have enough money to spend $600 a month on AC, then it's not that bad, actually. You can just crank it all summer. But awesome, Adam. So Anago, how long ago did you start Anago?
So actually, I've been with Anago since 2009. My father founded the business back
Amazing.
in 1989. I was never going to join the family business. That was not on my bingo card.
Yeah.
That year. But my background is corporate finance. I worked at IBM for a little while, and in 2008, 2009, the big recession we all dealt with, and there was huge rounds of layoffs. I wasn't laid off. I was literally like the young analyst. I had employee numbers and exit packages, and I was the one basically analyzing the numbers and determining who got the golden parachute and who got the not so golden parachute or the non-parachute. And it just left kind of one of those nasty feelings in my stomach. And I happened to be down for the holidays, and my dad says, "You got to check this thing out. I think we got the tiger by the tail with this Anago thing." And it was about 6 months later that I ended up joining, and that was in 2009. And he goes, "Congratulations, you've left your highfalutin finance job, and you're going to be a telemarketer by day and a franchisee's assistant at night, cleaning a daycare." So I've literally done it all here.
That's amazing. So founded in 1989 by your father.
Yeah.
You stepped in 2008, 2009, which that was right around quite a fun period. I was actually young enough I was impacted because my parents went through kind of bankruptcy, and it was tough on them during that time. But I was obviously not in the marketplace, so I don't have too much experience with 2008. So Anago, I have a lot of questions here because companies that we have started working with, or we tend to have conversations with, are very similar to yours in the fact that there's a kind of mass exodus of older business owners kind of exiting their organizations at this point, and either younger family members taking over or the business being sold kind of out, into the marketplace. And we've gone in and had a lot of conversations with these companies because there's such a lack of AI and operational support inside of these organizations. And it's kind of a no-brainer for a lot of people because either they're selling the business and they need to get it into the 21st century, or there's a younger person like yourself taking over going, we need to be ahead of the curve, right? We need to bring this into the 21st century. When and maybe it was, for long time, but when did you guys start really moving into bringing tech into the space and using, AI if you have, and et cetera, et cetera? Were you guys always kind of on the frontier of that, or is it something that was more a newer initiative in the last 10 years? Like, share a little bit. I'm really interested to hear kind of how that evolved.
So the birth, let's say, of our CleanCom software happened just a little bit before COVID. So call it like 2019, 2020, like I guess first quarter of 2020. And ultimately, I mean, the intention on it was, so in commercial cleaning, what ends up happening is, there's pros and cons to my business model. So the cons are pros, like you can't outsource me to China. Amazon's not coming to town to like replace me, right? So like there's you need that local person to come into the building and do the cleaning. Cons, we're all human and we all make mistakes. And because my business is very high touch and requires that human touch, there's the inevitability of someone making a mistake somewhere and upsetting a client. And so it started just as like, how can we quickly resolve an issue that a customer has if something didn't get, clean to their satisfaction, a trash can got missed or whatever. And frankly, it started as just something simple, like, speed to resolution of an issue. Coming out of COVID and kind of looking forward, we said, how can we use the software to then not only, speed up the resolution, but then prevent future issues and going forward. And so what we ended up doing is very simple, and we're going to be making it even more complicated with like an AI layer over top eventually. But right now it's got what we call preventive analytics. And so the way CleanCom works, just so everyone kind of grasps it, is normally in commercial cleaning, if you have an issue, you're going to leave like a note, like on a, like a sticky note, or sometimes they have like a binder and you leave a note. And then it turns into, especially in the US, right? It's, hey, I think the guy that cleans the place is Hispanic or Portuguese, speaks Portuguese, or do you speak that? Does someone speak that? Can someone leave a note for us? And so it just turns into this like mess of communication. And then you go like, did he respond to it? Did he do what I asked? I don't even know. And so the way CleanCom works is you have an issue, you take a picture of whatever your full trash can or whatever it might be. You take a picture, it sends it to the franchisee that cleans your business. It has built-in Google Translate. So any communication, you communicate in your native language, they can communicate in theirs. And then it has a automated 2-hour response guarantee. So you will get responded to within 2 hours. Otherwise, there's escalation profiles where someone else gets involved to make sure you get responded to.
Yeah.
And so that's all it was. And then we took it a level further and we said, well, wait a minute. If that franchisee has, say, 10 contracts he's cleaning, and 3 of them, somebody is complaining about, bad quality service in the restrooms or something like that, we can do something about that. And so now what it does is it queues up a notice to the regional franchise owner and says, hey man, this guy's having trouble cleaning restrooms. You should have him come back into the office and do a retraining on how to properly do restrooms. And so it's using those analytics to then have a better operational experience for the customer. And then where we're going to take it is, the next step is actually, so we're working on this year, we're actually just began, not just began, but just started rolling out a new e-learning platform, like an LMS platform with little small training videos with built-in quizzes and stuff like that. Nothing more than like 10 minutes, right? Micro learning type stuff. But the idea would be then, how cool would it be if I can have an AI kind of watching over any of these issues that might be being reported, automatically go to my LMS platform and serve up a video that's based on whatever issue that this guy is having. So he's not cleaning restrooms well, great, grab the LMS video, make sure he watches it. He has to take a quiz on it, and based on passing that quiz, he gets recertified to properly service restrooms. And so now I'm taking customer issues and turning it into training opportunities to prevent them from ever happening again. And it's all automated.
Incredible. How much of your background in finance and data played into this, if any? Because I notice when you think of like commercial cleaning, I think a lot of people probably listening wouldn't think so much on the analytical side, especially when it comes to like your servicing clients and their experience. Obviously on the sales side, marketing side, you always everything's analytics, but on the service side, a lot of times I think people forget the levels of analytics that you can be doing and preventative, diagnostic basically. Um,
Right.
was that part of your background that played into that, or how'd you guys like arrive at like this?
Yeah, I don't know if that had anything to do with finance. I mean, definitely reviewing, the budgets for how much would all this cost. Um,
Yeah,
and that didn't serve me well because it cost, anything with AI stuff costs,
yeah,
30% more than you budgeted for and takes
yeah.
about 6 months longer. But no, I think it was sort of our I'll call it my working hypothesis on customer experience in my industry. So in any other industry, like particularly right again, I'm in franchising. So you think of franchise restaurants, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, whatever, or like more like the, sit down, like I don't know, Denny's or something. Um, when you can have one of three experiences at a restaurant. So you can go in and you have a great experience, right? Food's good, waiter's great. You can have a bad experience. Food's cold, waiter's a jerk. Or you can have just sort of this it was fine, nothing special. Um, in cleaning, there aren't three. There's two experiences you can have in cleaning. Nobody goes, oh my goodness, my office is so clean, I'm going to get my janitor a birthday present. It just doesn't happen. There is no like joy experience. You either get to your office and you get in and you go, well, I got to work. And you sit down and you start working. Or you get into your office and you go, why is my trash can full? Or like, why does the bathroom smell bad? Like, what's going on here? What's this janitor doing? And so we looked at that and said, okay, if we're not going to have very often, if at all, opportunities to really delight someone and make them go, oh my goodness, this is amazing, then we have to use those bad moments um, to as our opportunity to make a friend and a lifelong customer. And so that's what we did is we said, how can we
Wow.
use the bad to ultimately turn it into a good situation? And that from that, I mean, our using CleanCom and using that, that fast response rate and quick resolution of issues, we took our average attrition is less than 40% of the industry average.
Wow.
So it's been a game changer for us because it's like customers with us know that, if they have an issue, they've all experienced other companies, but they know with us, it'll get taken care of and taken care of fast. And the likelihood of it happening again is very low.
Wow. I want to go back to something you just said because that it's such a cool way to look at a lot of business problems. Because in my business, you're right. When I think about it like that, there's a experience. There's this was an absolute killer job. You guys crushed it. Can I give you a testimonial? Like who else can I tell about your product? And then we have this was a horrible experience. So you're right. We do have our business specifically has three. You could even probably layer in some more into that.
Right.
But when I think about the office, yeah, it's either clean or it's not clean. It's pretty. And if it's clean, I guess, yeah, you're not, it's just more of an expectation that was the product, as it was. Um, but what you said about we use the negative as an opportunity to make a lifelong friend essentially in these organizations is a really good way to look at it. And I think a lot of people listening who have any type of fulfillment product could really take a look at their own process with that lens, and identify what experiences are happening on the negative side and how can you just turn those into glowing reviews.
Yeah.
Because you're right, that actually may be easier than initially having a wow experience in the first place is almost harder than turning a bad one into a good one. Not that you should be producing
don't
bad ones on
yeah,
purpose, but it's
don't
a
even
really
have that.
interesting concept. So
Yeah,
that's
so you don't even have bad experiences, but at the same time, like we've all heard the story about, someone left a Google review for a business And then you've seen the ones where like the owner absolutely like rips the customer, and you're going like, really? Like, that's the kind of business you operate? And then you've also seen the ones where they leave a review, and it's a 1-star review, right? And then all of a sudden, I don't know, a week later, it's a 5-star review, and they go, hey, I left a 1-star review. Management reached out to me. Not only did they resolve my problem, but they gave me a credit for another, 50% off my next product with them, and really owned it. And all of a sudden it's a 5-star. And you go, wait, this is an opportunity to really use, if I don't have the delight experience in an everyday setting, because people they're not focused on the cleaning, they're focused on work. I have to find that opportunity, and that was ours.
It's so good. And it makes me, I was telling you about the haircut. You mentioned you wanted a haircut. I was like, I got one yesterday and had this crazy experience. The funniest part about it, why I think I was actually so frustrated, was about 3 weeks ago, I got a haircut at the same place. And so I've been traveling full time for 2 years. It's very difficult to find a barber that can cut my hair how I want it cut. Especially when you're in like Nicaragua, right? Like they're not trained barbers. They just learned from their brother. So I get this haircut. It was the best haircut I've received in a long time. So much so that I went on Google and left a review for this Turkish kid. But then I came back 3 weeks later and had this experience, and it made me want to go on there and change that review. And you guys have a lot of repeat business, which I think for, some listeners here, like we're pretty project based, and like you may or may not come back for other projects. A lot of times though, like once we build you a system, that's all you really needed from us. But you guys have repeat business day in and day out. It's 5 days a week potentially,
Right.
So you had to consistently, work on that. But I love that. So you guys have the franchise model, you have the software. What was your biggest learning moment when working on building this software? You kind of mentioned everything's more expensive than, it's 30% more expensive. Do you have any other learning moments in there of kind of building that software? Because I'm actually in the process of building two myself. And I know a lot of other business owners that kind of in your similar boat. You're like, man, this would be so cool to have. Like we're in a world now where we can build it. What was your experience with that?
It definitely cost more and took way longer than I would have liked. That is for sure. And so, maybe, part of it, right? There's part of the lesson is like whatever you've budgeted and whatever a time allotment, like bank on it going longer and costing more. I mean, that's just a good thought process. I would say second, in moving particularly from our old CRM to this new CRM, user experience, like UI UX, is absolutely crucial. I happen to be, I don't know, for some reason it's like I joke, I say it's my curse, because like I understand the user flow very well on software applications. I don't know why. I know where my eye goes when I'm looking at a screen. And so I've actually asked the team, I want to see like every process personally. And half the time there's the reprogramming done based on that meeting. And initially, like, of course the developer was frustrated with me, but I was like, okay, you program this. And I go, so where do I go if I want to do this? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
This needs to be programmed in such a way where you automatically know what your options are and what the logical next step is. I go, if you think about, so I'm a Apple Mac, iPhone, Mac user. And there's obviously pros and cons to that, but what they've done really well is their ecosystem. Everything just sort of works. It just automatically sort of connects. You don't have to think about it much. But I started thinking about that, and I'm not like Steve Jobs, and I'm not smart like that. But I look at it, and if someone told me this, if you took out your iPhone and you look, if you look at what the options are on any application that's designed by Apple, the bottom is what you can do within that application, and the top is always where you can go. You're opening an email, great. At the bottom is where you can compose or file or whatever. The top is what folder you're going to go into, whatever. Same thing. You're opening up a text. The bottom is where you can
Yeah.
put the stuff in, put an emoji, put a whatever
Imagine
else
that
in.
flipped. Not to throw you off, but imagine the text bubble at the top. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. That's funny.
So it's stuff like that. But you go, now I know no matter where I go inside of that ecosystem,
Yeah.
I know what's telling me what I can do and what's telling me where I can go. And so we try to apply as much of that logic as possible to our software so that it because it's always it's that moment of I'm not sure where to go next, or I need some thorough, ridiculous amount of training, which how do you say it in 2025? Like if your product needs a ton of heavy lifting in terms of getting somebody onboarded to how to use it, you're probably not going to be around much longer. Like if with AI programming things itself and making everything all about the user experience, it needs to be intuitive and easy.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, man, you're falling behind.
For sure. Yeah. How much of that can I ask, was this like an internal hire? Like, did you hire a developer? Or did you source like an external organization to build it for you?
So so it started as having as an external organization, and we had one IT person, let's call it,
Yeah.
on staff. It's grown into that external organization, me pushing them to actually double the number of developers they have on their staff. And I've since hired a product enablement person, a
Wow.
QA analyst, an IT director. I mean, this thing's mushroom.
It's a SaaS. It's an
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The reason I ask is, it's interesting with us because I find our customer experience almost entirely relies on expectations and proper scoping of the project, right? Because if we go into it with one different expectations, like it never works. Like, so we have to get very clear on what we are and aren't doing. But then two is the scope. And we actually, right before this, we had an hour long, like we have an innovation meeting every week where our internal team, we go through, what AI is out there, different techniques and things we can use. And today I took them through just a refresher on like mind maps and mapping out a project start to finish, because I'm like a 4-year-old when I do it, but it always has worked so well for me because, let's say we're mapping a sales process and it's essentially like, okay, like you call the customer, what happens next? And people are always like, oh, well, it's like way over here. I'm like, no. There's only two things that can happen if you call someone. They pick up or they don't pick up, right? Like to me, it's that simple. But to your point, if you aren't like mapping a software like that, then it is, well, what's the next logical step? Because sometimes, especially developers, they go so far down the rabbit hole, like too fast. It's like, whoa, so scoping projects has been huge for us, and we're still trying to get better at it every day. And, we're moving into having SKUs for all of our builds. So let's say it's a HubSpot implementation, right? We have a SKU for like every piece of something that we would need in there. And that's kind of all added in the beginning so that we know exactly how many hours are associated. And, but that is it takes a lot of time to get that right, I think. And we still are, improving it every day. But
yeah, I think the simple non-techie example I always give in that space is my sister when she got married. This is 12 years ago. I don't know why. Like again, this is my inner nerd that remembers this stuff. But I remember like she had a wedding planner, and the wedding planner, like everything you could imagine, she thought of.
Yeah.
And I remember, so it's day of, and she's kind of giving everybody, hey, we're going to do one of those sparkler send-offs where everyone, waves a sparkler at the end. And we're getting close to like the wedding. So well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And we get to the sparkler send-off, and she goes, and then I'm just going to give you guys these sparklers and we'll get it. And we'll it was just all of a sudden, like she didn't have time to give the nth detail on that. And I kid you not, so everyone's leaving the wedding. I have a fistful of those giant, like 3-foot sparklers.
yeah,
Trying to like hand them out. And like, there's like one lighter. We're all attempting to get it all lit. Luckily, she did get a couple of good pictures, but it was just like, I remember that very much as like, this was just like the pictures show that it was perfect, and that's what I'm happy for her about.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was the one thing that wasn't planned out to the nth degree.
Mm,
And I always tell that story when I talk to like developers and stuff like that, because that's what it is. It's the one
yeah.
thing that can totally alter the experience because we didn't plan out, what happens if I do this? My favorite is I call it, so in development, they call it the happy path, right? We're
Yeah.
programming, like, if the user goes through the flow and ends up, I call it the unhappy path.
Yeah.
I go, because your average user, what they're going to do, they're going to get halfway and go, wait, I need to go check this. So then you check that back over here. Oh, what does this button do? They're just going to start, messing
Yeah.
around. And I go, so have we looked at the unhappy path? Like, what does it mean if you've and clicked on this or clicked where you shouldn't have been or typed something in and go, oh, shoot, I forgot, whatever. Or you got up to the, and you have your,
Yeah.
what do you call them? Emotional support tabs open, and you have 40 tabs open, and you go, wait, where did you have to factor in the human element to your software.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it is difficult for some people, I think, to be able to do that. Or yeah, I don't know, because I don't do a ton of like development, but I've seen it. I've been beta testing a software for one of my best friends, and incredible software, incredible idea, incredible concept, great platform, but things were out of order, and like in the steps at which you had to integrate stuff. It's kind of like a CRM, and I'm in there, and I've been building CRMs for 8 years now straight. That's all I've done. So if there's anyone that can build something in there, it's probably me. Like I'm probably in that top 1%. But that's not even the clients that are using it. They aren't me normally. So I'm in there, I'm lost, I'm confused. And I just had the conversation with him early on of like, dude, if I'm getting lost in here, like your normal person they're toast. They're gonna open this, they're gonna close it 10 minutes later. To your point, they're gonna move on. It's not gonna be worth it to them. So now I wanted to ask you, so Anago, we've done actually a couple CRM implementations for commercial cleaning companies, specifically like with HubSpot, and so I have like decent idea of like kind of the business model, but you guys are doing it on a much bigger scale, especially with the franchising. How much of it is associated with like Lean Six Sigma, if you will, or like the actual well, Lean, do you know what Lean Six Sigma is?
I'm a green belt. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So how much of your process is really like tied to efficiency and, moving things along quickly? Because I assume like, there's got to be a lot of moving parts in your organization to keep it as tight as you've spoken about it. Can you take me through that and like kind of what your experience there has been, and maybe what the biggest needle mover for efficiency has been inside of your organization?
So yeah, I mean, I think it ends up having to be right at the end of the day in my space, nobody's got a better mop, right? No one's got a better vacuum. Everyone can afford the same stuff from the top vendors, and so ultimately, what you end up competing on is speed and customer service. And so everything is centered around efficiency. So in transitioning our old, so like a lot of franchises, our original CRM was sort of like, a hodgepodge of different pieces where, we go, okay, we got to bill these customers. So like, I guess we should get some QuickBooks or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, okay, how do we market our customers better? Well, I guess we should get a CRM. And you have this like duplicate, triplicate entry in all these different places, and you're trying to keep up with everything. And then you go, well, wait a minute, we need to have a way to do bookkeeping where we can see what all our franchisees are doing to make sure they're doing it correctly. And so now you need something that integrates across, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever locations.
Yep.
And so we went from that to, we looked at how we wanted, again, this was, sort of the vision casting I did for the new software. I said, I want end to end from like, lead coming in, or we do some outsource, lead gen, but also, lead coming in off the website, let's just say, to any kind of follow-up to set an appointment, to proposal, measurements and proposal being delivered, any follow-up, close the sale, bring in the unit franchise, make sure they're, copacetic with cleaning that particular facility, bill it, collect it, and then pay the unit franchisee their share of the revenue on that. I said end to end, zero double entry, and zero paper created unless requested by customer. And that was the overarching vision for that. And we said, because at the end of the day, I can't tell you how much time right now, and I'll pick on myself in my own system where, oh, you did your lead follow up over here, and now you got to enter it into this system, and now you got to print that out and walk that over or email that over to the people who do the billing, and then they got a manual triple entry that into QuickBooks and into this other software, and then they got to print something out that gives it back, and you're like, oh my goodness, that, like, it's hours and hours and hours of just busy time and not time well spent. So everything in ours is about efficiency. Even going back to the proposal software that we use, that's proprietary. That was my first foray into software. And I mean, I think it used to be quite literally everyone would use like a mail merge in Microsoft Word. And it was like a template with our logo on it, and it was slap a logo on it. You're Anago too. And they would take their specifications of the building there, what's the square footage, what's the type of floors, how many bathrooms. They would write all that down. They would give it physically to an admin who would then type that all in with a mail merge into the proposal and then give it back. And they would, tell him or her like, hey, I need these more edits. And I go, wait a minute. So we have this whole job that all they're doing is like proofreading and copy pasting. Like, is that, so we actually, our first software was called Clean Source, Anago Clean Source. And that was the proposal software. And so now salespeople go out with an iPad, they fill out all the information on the pad of all the, the square footage and all that stuff like we were talking about. And by the end of it, they can, like, one button at the end of that, it creates a proposal, automatically sends it to the customer with a sign now. Use sign now, I think, instead of DocuSign, but a digital signature link, and it's done. And you go, I've eliminated the need for a whole copy paste person by making it all on the spot like that. So everything is like, how can I compress time? And frankly, because we're not selling software, we're selling cleaning. So it's low margin. And every minute is extremely valuable.
Yeah. I had a guest on our podcast last week, and he said something that I was like, oh, that was so good. Because as an agency, as a consulting agency, essentially, we are like brokers of time, is what he said. And I was like, ooh, that's really good. Because, we have people on the team that, maybe we have a data guy and he handles dashboards and reporting. We have a fulfillment guy that's building all the back end automations, et cetera, et cetera. And each of those they have a limited amount of bandwidth. And at the end of the day, we're charging X amount of money for a project. And, so it really is optimization of time on those. And for us, the biggest optimization is usually, is again, going back to scoping. So making sure that like we got as much information on the front end on the build as possible. So there's as few mistakes essentially that we have to go back and fix or change. The fewer iterations, the faster everything is. Because you can't templatize most of what we do. We're not like we don't work with just commercial cleaners and like build them CRMs, So everything's pretty custom. Something that this like reminds me of, it's kind of funny because yesterday I built like a whole marketing funnel out. I mean, I new ads, new video sales letters, new everything. And it took me like 8 hours, and I was like, wow, that was pretty efficient, I feel like, for what I had done. But as a CEO, sometimes, I think a lot of people have this image of, oh, you're a CEO, you just handle kind of like leadership conversations and stuff. But that's usually not the case. Like when talking with you, it's like you've overseen now two softwares. Like when you were getting into the cleaning business, I assume you weren't like, I'm going to be a product guy working on software while also, doing everything else. What has been your experience with wearing the multiple hats, and How has that impacted kind of your leadership style over the years?
So yeah, I mean, I was just talking about with someone about this, where transitioning from middle management to upper management to CEO, it is such a it's a 180-degree turn. And so you're climbing the ranks at any corporate America, right? And you continue to climb based on the quality of your output. And yes, it's part of it. The higher you get, the more people that are on your team. Then you get to CEO, and it really is like you go from it's the quality of my output to no, I'm here to like motivate and encourage, but also show people that like I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and hop in any
Yeah.
area that really needs a push. Um, and so you go from doing to motivating, and sometimes motivating is like the PE teacher who's like, I'm going to do these pull-ups to show you how
Yeah.
pull-ups are done, and you
Yeah.
go, oh man, I want to do those.
Or go run the 4 minute mile, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Uh, but yeah, it's definitely it's definitely something where you have to, in my mind, I have to adopt more of like a servant leadership style because of being in the franchise system, right? Yes, I have to have a vision and direction for where I think we're going, and be able to communicate that and promote that and constantly stay on top of that. But at the end of the day, I have my constituents are my franchise owners more so than the customer, right? And ultimately, my job is to make them happy. And if I can make them happy and make them understand and see my vision for what the customer needs, ultimately, it's going to make their businesses more successful. Which means, the customer's happy, you're happy, I'm happy, everybody's winning. But it ends up being like, how can I help you? What can I do to take the pain off at your level to make you more efficient, make you more profitable, make you more successful at your level? Because I know if I can make you more efficient and make you more money, you're going to have that much more money to invest back in satisfaction of the customer.
Yeah, I love that. It definitely, and obviously, I think it depends on the size of the organization, also of what the CEO is, doing ultimately. But I think you go from, my experience has been going from a manager to like a maker, is like how it was described to me in a video the other day, and I was like, that was a really good way to put it because we make a lot of things. You create a vision. You create motivation. You create. So you're doing a lot more creation, I feel like, than you are of just like managing things. And for me, I have to find much bigger blocks on my calendar for creative space. To be able to kind of get in flow. And it was a problem because I had so many meetings before and they're just kind of like all over the place. I was trying to like pop in and out of like this creative space. It was a nightmare. Like I got super overwhelmed. I had to take a step back and be like, I got to fix this. So now my schedule is much more blocked. Like Wednesdays is like content day. That's all I do on Wednesdays. So I always like to hear other people's experiences with it though, because, industries are different and organization size has a huge play on it. But the mission is being able to paint that picture where you're going is obviously huge, and to have real clarity on that without the space to be able to do it, I think is tough. And then, like you said, I am a big believer, like a CEO. I say that but then when I say it out loud, I think it really is dependent on the company size. But my experience with small to medium sized businesses, let's say that, is a CEO should be able to roll up their sleeves and go do just about any job better than like some other people a lot of times, or at least be able to like make it happen. You might not be able to go develop something, but you might be able to talk the developer into doing something faster than anyone else, So, yeah.
There's definitely, I would say two things on that. I was just as burnout as you were kind of alluding to earlier, and it is in the CEO role, you have to block time to be in the creative. Someone asked me like, what's the difference between um, uh, management and leadership, And I go, leadership is, and they said, leadership is when you create your own work.
Hmm.
You know, because management is someone gave you a project and you're working through it
Yes.
and you have a deadline. Leadership is like I'm quite literally going out of my way to go to conferences on AI, go to conferences on cleaning, go get a Lean Six Sigma green belt,
Yeah.
whatever it is, because I'm going like, what else can we do to be better, faster, smarter, cooler, whatever? And all of a sudden, you know, and people sometimes my team hates it when I come back from a conference because I'm all, you know, jazzed up and I'm like, guys, I got another idea. I'm like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
oh. You know, but it's crucial. And one of the best pieces of advice I got on that is it's simple, it's time blocking. And so I used to take a meeting anytime I'd work, you
Yeah.
know, just ungodly hours. Now I will not take a meeting before 10:30, and I will not take a meeting after 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Period. Will not do it unless it's like absolute code red emergency. I won't do it. And I literally, it's on my calendar. It says HVA, high value activity.
Love it.
And it's me not looking at my emails. It's me not looking at, you know, anything like that in the mornings. And mornings are,
Yeah.
I'm fresh, it's early. I'm going to get my focus work done. And then at 4 o'clock on block, that's when it's like, okay, it's email. Let me spend, you know, let me just burn through, you know, 50 emails in the next hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it might be. And just, it's catch up on the daytime. You have to have that isolation. Otherwise, you literally will get pulled into every meeting on every
Yeah.
single thing. And you have to have that time where it's just like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not going to be there.
Yeah, I've learned that pretty early on, luckily in my career. Like what, because I had Slack like in most of my organizations, and I realized because I was like in that middle upper management for a little while, director level, and I would have like Slack, and I was at one point the guy that replied to every Slack message all the time. I was like, the fastest response time on Slack. And then I realized, like, holy, I'm just interrupting my work every single time so then I was the guy that never responded to Slacks. And sure enough, everyone that needed me magically didn't need me ever again. They figured everything out on their own. So I actually ended up with employees underneath me that were much more autonomous because they knew I wasn't going to respond. So they had to figure it out. And that was, some of those early learning lessons where I was like, being available all the time is not efficient for, a lot of situations. Unless you're on front facing customer service or something,
Right.
we're talking about completely different situations. So, awesome. Well, I know we're already a little bit over time. So Adam, I really appreciate your time since we're on that subject right now. What a great conversation. Where can people find you? Obviously, Anago Cleaning Systems. If you guys want to open up a franchise, if you want to go make some money cleaning some buildings and doing the Lord's work, everyone needs a clean office. Like Adam said at the very beginning of the podcast, it's not you can't have China come in and take your commercial cleaning company from you. So if you want to start up a franchise, reach out to them. But where can people find Adam? Specifically, is it best place LinkedIn? Do you do social media?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you just type in Adam Povlitz, I respond to messages. I'm posting constantly. So yeah, Adam Povlitz on LinkedIn, and I will be sure to respond to anyone who reaches out.
Amazing. We'll put the link in the description of the podcast below. This will also be on YouTube, so it'll be there. One last thing, Adam, I want to put you on the spot a little bit. What's one of your favorite quotes?
That's a good question. Let's see. What about favorite quotes as of recent? How about this one? I happen to watch the Martha Stewart documentary on Netflix because she's clearly a business mogul, like in a little empire. And she said, I thought it was interesting. She goes, "When you're through changing, you're through." And I loved that because it really has been sort of the kind of the in my career, my company in a nutshell. Like you constantly have to be changing and adapting and evolving, and as much as sometimes you come in and you find out this regulation and this state changed, and therefore we have to completely change this whole aspect of this product, or this,
Yeah.
client wants this way and you have to completely redo something. If you're not constantly changing and evolving, it's because nobody wants your service.
Yeah.
And so if you're through changing, you're through. And I never thought in my life, well, that I'd be quoting Martha Stewart, but I thought it was a great quote.
Yeah. No, that's a great one. Thank you for leaving us with that, because especially in this AI world, I find myself sometimes trying to keep up, even though I'm like kind of on like the bleeding edge of a lot of this stuff. And I can't, imagine how some other people are feeling that maybe aren't just like knee deep in this stuff all day. But to your point, if you're not changing, if you're not having to learn new systems and new processes, especially in my world, like that means you are so far cooked and gone, yeah, of like there isn't a reason to change or learn anything new. So I appreciate that. That's awesome. Shout out Martha Stewart. We'll leave her.
The Stewart. Let's see if we get.
Yeah, we'll put her link in bio. But no, Adam, such a great conversation. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come on here and share with our listeners a little bit about your organization, your experiences as a CEO, and if there's anything ever that we can do for you, please let us know. Don't hesitate to reach out. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Awesome, man. Thank you.